where Vancouver Island is. It's not even close to Toronto. Okay, let's get things going.
Welcome to the Unnamed Sports Show. I am your host, Joshua Griffith, here on the Sports Talk On Network. Thank you for joining me on this Thursday afternoon, July 16th. So I found out that my monologues are kind of killing my guests, my great guests that I get before I even get to them. So I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I'm going to go quick in the intro, and I'm going to get you guys to the great guests that I have on today. So today I will be joined by David Codrelli from Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation. He's been, him and Chris Faber have been taking part of Canucks training camp and checking that out. So we'll get a little bit of news from there about the Canucks. Then we're going to be joined by Stejskal from the Athletic Soccer to talk about the Whitecaps San Jose game last night and just news from the MLS bubble. Going to close out the show, and I'm really excited about this one. I'm going to be joined by four-time Canadian Olympic snowboarder Mercedes Nicoll. So let's jump right into the Whitecap stuff before we go over to my first guest and we get you caught up with the Canucks. The Whitecaps, they blew a 2-goal lead twice yesterday night en route to a 4-3 loss to San Jose Earthquake. They were able to go up early. Inbom, probably the only time his name was called throughout the game. Had a nice wide ball out to Ali Adnan. He made a great cutback against defender Tommy Thompson. Curled it beautifully. If you remember from last season with his goal, was able to beat Daniel Vega and give the Whitecaps the 1-0 lead. So that was a great start for the Whitecaps. And it actually continued as they would go up 2-0 on an own goal from Judson from San Jose. San Jose actually recorded a record 22 corners, and on one of them they decided, I don't know what, they were only down 1-0 at the time. They decided to push every single person forward except their goalkeeper, and Jordi Reyna was able to break out on the counter. Looking for Christian Jahome on the pass, but it was a little bit light, and Vega got a piece of it before it went off Judson into the back of the net. So that gave the Whitecaps the 2-0 lead. Excuse me. San Jose would get one back before the break, and you guessed it was off a corner. Andres Reyes flicked in a really nice back little flick on a Christian Espinoza corner, past Gripo, and it was 2-1 going into the half. Another mistake by San Jose, and it really looked like Vancouver is going to come away with all 3 points in this match. But as Caps fans know, Caps fans know. David Milinkovic capitalized on a really bad pass by Vega in the second half. And he was able to send a square ball over to Christian Jahome, who scored his first goal as a Vancouver Whitecaps to make it 3-1 in the 59th minute. So that was nice to see him get on the sheet. You'd think that would have been enough, 3-1, but like I said, Whitecaps chance. San Jose head coach Matias Almeida made a complete line change, swapped out 4 players, including bringing on Caps killer Chris Wondolowski and former Cap Shea Salinas. And both players would actually end up scoring. Wondolowski got things going with a free header past Grupo, and then after a Oswaldo Alanis corner that tied things up in the 81st minute, Salinas had the heartbreaker at the death there for all 3 points for the San Jose in Group B. Basically vaulted them to the top of the group ahead of Chicago Fire, who beat Seattle the other day, and put Vancouver down at the bottom of the group. So we're going to get more into Vancouver Whitecaps news and talk more about the MLS's back tournament. We had some games. We had a game this morning, and we got some games this evening. So I'm going to be joined later by Sam Stejskal from The Athletic, like I said, to talk about that. But right now I want to switch things up and get into Canucks training camp, which is going underway. We're in the 4th day of it. And I spoke with David Codrelli a little bit earlier. He was kind enough. He had some time between things this morning. And John, I don't think he made it out to the camp, but he's heading to the game, the intramural squad game tonight, or intra squad game, or whatever you call it, preseason. I don't know. So I spoke with him a little bit earlier. So if Lee, we could curate that up. So I am happy to be joined by David Codrelli, managing editor for the Canucks Army and co-host of Canucks Conversation. David, thank you very much for joining me today. How are you doing? Everyone staying safe and healthy?
Yes, I'm doing awesome. Very happy to be on your show.
Well, like I said, thanks for joining me. I mean, I had Chris on in one of my earlier shows, and I'm excited to have you on now that you guys are there at Rogers Arena covering the Canucks training camp. So.
Yeah, it's been a good week so far for Canucks Army with both Chris and I there. Obviously at different days, social distancing from everybody, but you can't complain, right? You're at the arena, you're watching hockey for a living, so I'll take it.
So obviously this is what the people want to know. How is the team looking, David? How's the first week of retraining camp?
Well, obviously it's tough to tell. There's been some moments of frustration from Jacob Markstrom, and that's something that I think a lot of people have kind of noted. Him, smashing his stick over the crossbar, almost decapitating Elias Pettersson in doing so. And then, after the conditioning stint that the losing team of these scrimmages is put through, not too happy again. He got beat 5-hole by Jay Beagle on that goal where he smashed his stick over the crossbar and broke it, a la Anders Nilsson. And you just notice those moments of frustration. And obviously Jacob Markstrom isn't happy with how he's playing right now. But again, it's training camp and it's preseason. So Travis was asked about it today on the Zoom call we had with him. He was asked about what he thinks of Jacob Markstrom's performance. And, obviously the insinuation there is that, he's obviously having some trouble here and he's not super happy with his own performance. So what do you see? And again, Travis was just like, I think he looks fine. I'm least worried about Jacob Markstrom going into this play-in series. He's going to be fine. He looks fine. I have no problems with the way he's playing. And, that helps hearing that from a head coach, right? That vote of confidence that you're going to be fine. It's not like Green's now asking himself, oh man, do I got to start Travis Green during the play-in series? Because the absolute last thing this team needs going into this play-in series and this playoff run potentially is a goaltending controversy. We all know how those end. So we would like to see Jacob Markstrom play a little bit better, sure. But am I worried? Not really. I'm kind of in the same boat as Travis on that one. I'm pretty sure Marky's going to settle into his own in the coming days here.
Yeah, and for me, that just speaks to the competitive edge and competitive nature of a player like Jacob Markstrom. That even as early in training camp, things like that frustrate him. Losing and having to do the conditioning stint. Going to be excited to see the scrimmage tonight, actually. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be, it's good. And I was talking to Thatcher Demko about this today. Like, is the intensity a little bit higher because of these conditioning stints that people have to do after they play the game? And he's, yeah, absolutely. Like, the intensity is picked up with each day of training camp. And I think tonight's scrimmage is going to be, as Demko said, the most competitive one yet. And I think you're going to continue to see that until the Canucks are ready for game action. I mean, they're one of the 24 teams that don't look like they're ready to play a National Hockey League playoff game, but they will be eventually. And that's how they get there. And I think, having your guys want it that badly and not want to do that conditioning helps everybody play a little harder and helps that competitive edge. Yeah,
absolutely. So I understand too that Jake Virtanen was also on the Zoom media availability today. How does Jake feeling about training camp? And it looks like his conditioning is actually pretty top notch compared to the rest of the team.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I heard about Jake being in good shape. He had ice when he was in Kelowna, I believe, during the quarantine that all of his teammates had to go through. A lot of the guys in Sweden even didn't have access to ice. Markstrom wasn't really on the ice much. Markstrom was. Pettersson wasn't, rather. But Jake Virtanen actually showed up, and he looks like he's in shape. The Canucks have had bag skates on basically every day, and he hasn't looked worse for wear. Whereas you compare that to the first training camp we saw this year, he's hunched over, going to the bench during the bag skate. He's the only Canuck that needed to do that. That's not a good look for Jake, and he knew that. He knew he needed to come in shape here. And quite frankly, it looks like he delivered on that. And I mean, Travis was very, very open with his players on this. He said, look, I've lost 15 to 20 pounds. There's no excuse for you to come in not in shape. And obviously there's an excuse for guys not to quite have their legs under them yet. Some errors with the puck, without the puck, whatever. There's going to be that it's like any training camp in the sense that you need to get up to game speed, and it's taking guys some time, sure. And I mean, the way I look at it is there's been guys who look great in, guys like Brock Besser, Jay Beagle. They look awesome. They've looked great at this training camp so far, especially Brock Besser. And then everybody else just kind of looks what you would expect. Nobody's really stuck out as, oh my gosh, this guy didn't show up and he doesn't look like he's ready. Like, everybody looks at like they're at about the same level. And then again, there's those guys like Brock Besser and Jay Beagle who just look a step ahead of everybody else.
It flows me right into my next question. I was going to ask if there's been any standouts so far at camp. And obviously, hearing a lot about Brock Besser off the ice. So it's nice to see that we're hearing some really positive things on the ice front.
Yeah, exactly. Brock Besser, the trade rumors, definitely he saw them. He wasn't a fan of them. He didn't like seeing them. We can get into if they were true, blah, 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 all that stuff. I don't want to get into that.
Nope. That's not what we're talking about. Nope.
You're absolutely right. Brock Besser looks motivated, and he said playing against Minnesota was going to motivate him more with all of his family and friends watching. I think this is going to be a really good play-in series for Brock Besser with all the factors, again, like you said, off the ice and everything going into it. I really think Brock Besser is going to keep his foot on the gas pedal here as he has through the first 3 or 4 days of camp. I think we're going to continue to see one of the better Brock Bessers we've seen.
So again, you mentioned only 3 or 4 days into camp. I want to talk a bit about the Black Aces in the second group. Is there anybody that's kind of been standing out in that group for you, whether it be Olli Levy or Brogan Rafferty in that sense, or any of the forwards?
So nobody's really stood out. Like I said, everybody looks like they're at about the same pace. The thing I've been looking for when I've been watching the Black Aces skate is Olli Levy's knee there? Because at the first training camp this year, there were some stretches that he couldn't participate in. There was some drills that he couldn't participate in. He wasn't turning properly. There was things you could see in his skating, and you knew there was something wrong. And then sure enough, about 2 months later on November 16th, it's announced that Olli Levy had a knee injury and he had tweaked his knee or whatever the case was. So what I look for when I watch the Black Aces skate now is, how is Olli Levy looking? Is he skating properly? And it looks good on that front there. When I look at Olli Levy, I see him skating well. I see him participating in everything. He's hitting. He's playing the right way. He's doing everything that he should be. And there's no cause for concern with Levy through the first 3 days of camp. Again, guys that stand out, like Ferland was skated with the team for the second time today. Again, I wasn't at the training camp, but from everything I've read from my peers and my coworkers, everything looks good on that front. Ferland should be skating soon within the coming days, as per Travis Green on the availability today. He should be with the main group. Travis wasn't really grilled on if Ferland's going to be a part of that, if he's going to be, somebody that Travis looks to put in the lineup right away. We're not really sure. I think we're going to have to see some more from Ferland, play a few scrimmages, get up to game speed. He has been cleared for contact. He's been skating before training camp. He was skating. So I'm looking forward to seeing Michael Ferland. I'm not sure if the organization is ready to pencil him into the lineup right away, but it could be something we see. So
obviously, a lot has been made of the Canucks' recent signing of Jack Rathbone, and your colleague over at Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation, Chris Faber, was big on this one. So I was just wondering if you could touch on that a bit.
Yeah, so Jack Rathbone, what does this guy bring to the table? Well, he's got legitimate top 4 upside, and Brett Lee from Canucks Army is currently working on a deep dive filled with video about what this guy is really going to bring to the table and what the Canucks are really getting in this guy, because he is somebody who I personally, and Chris even, hasn't seen play too much. We haven't watched too many Harvard games, admittedly, but the people I talk to and trust all tell me the same thing. This guy is really, really good. You watch clips of him skate and you watch clips of him move the puck, and you see similarities to Quinn Hughes when he wheels around the net and the way he protects the puck with his smaller frame. He's only 5'11", right? When he does that, you see a player who has the potential to be that good 1-2 punch. And if your left side is looking like Quinn Hughes, Jack Rathbone, and then you have Alex Edler in a third pairing role or you have Jack Rathbone in a third pairing role, you take that any day of the week. And it's kind of a testament to how the new wave of NHLers has looked, because there were some people looking forward to Nikita Triumkin coming back potentially. And I'm sure you're aware of, I'm not one of those people. Again, the people that I talk to and trust and I've seen Triumkin play in the KHL. It's just not there. He doesn't look like he's an NHL caliber defenseman. I wasn't really on board with the organization bringing him back, and I was rather relieved actually this morning to see that the organization that Triumkin walked away and is going to play another year in the KHL. The Canucks do still have his rights for another year, so they could package him in a trade maybe. I don't know what his trade value really is. I don't know if there's a team that's looking to take a flyer on him, but again, this is a guy that you're much happier to have Jack Rathbone in your lineup, although the events aren't related, that Rathbone and Triumkin, those two players aren't really related. It's a good sign that the Canucks are going to be getting Jack Rathbone potentially in the lineup next year.
No, I had it written down here. Ask Quads if he has 88 reasons why he's happy that they didn't sign Nikita Triumkin today. So
yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if anybody noticed that. I saw you tweeted that earlier. So check that out. That article out that you did before. That you're pretty happy that they didn't sign him. So
yes, yep.
At the cost that he was going to be, I'm also pretty happy that they didn't sign him too. Especially when you're looking at what they just got Jack Rathbone for, on an entry level contract. Obviously, no scheduled B bonuses either. So it's a pretty team friendly contract.
Yeah, exactly. Like you take Jack Rathbone, even if Jack Rathbone cost you $2 million, you take that over Triumkin at $1 million, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I know how you feel on that one. So I know you're super busy. Obviously, you have the Canucks preseason scrimmage or whatever they're calling it, 25-minute periods here tonight to go and check out, and then obviously all of your work for the Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation. Just before we go, I wanted to, if you could let people know what you guys are working on right now, what they can expect to see out of you guys in the next little bit.
So I'm sure, as you know, we've had pretty good coverage of training camp all week long. We've been there. We continue to be there all week long, boots on the ground. We are going to be bringing you the post games of the games you actually can't watch because the Canucks aren't live streaming these scrimmages, and this one's going to be a 7 p.m. Get the players some game action and let them get into what it feels like to have a morning skate, go home, have their nap, get into a game routine, right? So you're going to get all that from us. You're going to be getting some deep dives. I'm actually working on a deep dive of what Pud Colson is going to bring to the team. I've been watching a lot of this guy, and he is really impressive. And I think a lot of fans look at the 2 goals he scored in 30 games and say, okay, it's time to pump the brakes. But again, that's just not the case at all. There's a ton of reasons why he only put up 2 goals. And again, as an 18, 19-year-old in the KHL, that's especially impressive to do that. So I'm going to have a big article on Pud Colson coming myself. We've got the Monday mailbags that I do once a week. I love answering questions from our readers. And then, you're going to be getting a lot of stuff like that. There's going to be a Rathbone deep dive probably tomorrow. I don't know when this is coming out, but it should be up on Canucks Army, and we're going to be talking about, again, Brett Lee, really good work that this guy does on the video and the analysis and all that good stuff, and you're going to get one of those on Rathbone. So I'm looking forward to what we have in the coming weeks.
That's fantastic. I'm excited to see it and excited to catch more of your coverage from Vancouver Canucks training camp. So David Codrelli from Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation, thank you very much for joining me today.
All right. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that chat with David Codrelli from Canucks Conversation and Canucks Army. Getting everybody caught up with what's going on in Canucks training camp. And like we talked about a bit there, the Canucks have a squad game tonight between the two teams. They'll be playing 2 25-minute periods, so that'll be great. Want to get more into the Whitecaps loss last night before I'm joined by my second guest, Sam Stejskal. It's hard to take a lot of positives from that game, especially in the back end. Ranko Veselinovic looked pretty sharp. for the most part, and Yasser Kamira did at times, but he made a lot of marking errors in the game. And I thought the decision by head coach Mark DeSantos to only make 3 of the 5 subs wasn't necessarily the right one. He alluded to it a bit in media availability that they don't really have. They're missing players. They're missing 5 really key players, and 3 of their strikers. They don't even have a striker right now, so they're running a false 9. So it is hard, and I understand where he's coming from that point. But to give up a 2-goal lead 2 different times in a game, I don't know. It wasn't the way to come out, especially when he talked so much in training camp heading up to this about how his team they weren't changing. He even said he focused on the LA Galaxy game that they played before on March 7th. He said, this is the team that you're going to see, even with the players out. And while he did change strategy a little bit, that's kind of the tune that he was going with. But we didn't see it. I mean, after the first goal, the team was dropped back. We're basically within 30 yards of their own net for the most part, giving up a record 22 corners. I don't know what it is against San Jose, but they really like to give up corners and records against San Jose. But I don't know. I'm going to get into a little bit more of that right now because I'm really excited to be joined from the Athletic Soccer, Sam Stejskal. So right on cue, Lee brings him in. So as he connects here.
Hey, sorry guys, can you hear me? I don't know what
Hey,
was
no
going on
worries.
there with my audio.
Hey, no, it takes a little bit to connect. I'm used to it anyways. Sam, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so obviously, writer for the Athletic Soccer, co-host of Allocation Disorder with Paul Tenorio. How are you doing? Is your family staying safe and healthy during all these times?
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing well, all things considered, so no complaints. How about yourself?
I am as well, yes. I'm starting to get a little bit busier now with things picking up in the sports worlds, but no, it's been good. Everybody's been healthy on my side and nothing there. So I guess we'll jump right into it.
Sounds good.
Wow. Last night, what a game. What do you make of the San Jose Earthquake comeback last night?
Yeah, that was one of the more ridiculous sporting events I can remember watching. Although to be fair, I barely remember anything from before 4 months ago, it feels like. So maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment on that one. No, that was totally insane. Just from the own goal that put the Whitecaps up 2-0. I mean, even before that, Ali Adnan's opener was quite the opener. But then you have the own goal when the game went from kind of weird and funky to into another realm of bizarre. And after that, San Jose coming back, scored a nice goal of their own right before halftime, and then another huge mistake by the Quakes put the Caps up 3-1, and then 3 unanswered in the final 20 minutes there. I guess 30 when you account for the 10 minutes stoppage time. But yeah, totally bonkers, totally MLS, and I don't know. It felt appropriate that a game like that would be happening in front of 0 fans between 2 West Coast teams in a swamp in Central Florida on a Wednesday night during the middle of a global pandemic. So yeah, I don't even really know where to begin, but.
And to end it with a flare, and to end it with a flare too, right?
I mean, I don't know. Vancouver's center backs did not cover themselves in glory at any point really last night. But that last play, I'm still very confused how Shea Salinas was allowed to run 40 yards into the box without anyone really stepping to him, someone running alongside of him but unable to catch up, and then into the box just basically ran through as strong, I feel like, because it's not like it was like a running back breaking tackles, but just going right through both center backs. How does that happen? I don't know. but here we are, and it ended in sadness for Vancouver, of course.
It was almost a perfect Vancouver Whitecaps game because just from the own goal and the beautiful Ali Anand goal to everything, defensive lapses and all that. Yeah, like you said, it almost ended perfectly with the former Whitecaps, Shea Salinas, breaking through 5 Whitecaps players, but not actually breaking through them, bouncing the ball off them, I guess, back to himself.
Yeah, and then an absurd bounce off his chest, and Maxime Crepeau is out here saying it's his hand, and it's funny, Crepeau, like he got 4 put by him, obviously, but he made some excellent saves in that game too. And,
he was.
So
yeah, I mean, he's not one to be faulted for the game. That's for sure.
No,
maybe
definitely not.
The one on the Wondolowski goal where he decided to hold his line, I thought was a little bit questionable, but you would expect the defender.
You would expect someone to get a touch
to mark
before it got to him. Yeah.
Yasser was looking at him.
Weird. I mean, I don't know, man. That game was bizarre. It feels like, I mean, the Whitecaps to me are one of the weirder teams in the league. Obviously I follow MLS very closely.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that lineup, and I know they're down quite a few important guys, so I don't, want to make light of that part of it. But I saw that lineup, and I'm kind of like, man, who are some of these dudes? You kind of forget about them. And then they went out and played, and you're sort of reminded why, unfortunately. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be another, I mean, I shouldn't say it's going to be a long year for Vancouver, because who knows how many games we'll end up playing, right?
Yeah.
But
thankfully it might actually be a short year.
Yeah, but man, I wouldn't expect much regardless of how many games are played for the Caps this season.
Yeah, that kind of brings me on to my next thing. They have 2 games left against one against Seattle and then against Chicago Fire, sitting at the bottom of Group B there. What do you expect out of them? I mean, a couple points, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would be encouraged by is that they fought really hard, right? It's going to be interesting to see what the response is after a defeat like that. You saw Ali Adnan after the game pretty distraught coming off the field. Is it a situation where they respond and fight harder? Or is it one where they're like, you know what, we gave it a good shot in that game. Let's just make sure we get out of Orlando healthy and head back home. So that'll be interesting. Having said that, I mean, weird things are happening in this tournament all the time. The good teams have been bad. The bad teams have been good. Vancouver and San Jose did what they did. So I'm not going to rule anything out. Seattle has looked poor in their first 2 games. Only 1 point. They drew San Jose and lost to Chicago. So who knows? They might pack it in the 3rd game against the Caps, right? And they might just be like, you know what? Let's get out of here. Let's go home. It's not like they have anything to prove down in Orlando, right?
No. So former MLS champions, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, of course they'll want to win, but maybe the Caps can steal a point or 3 there. And Chicago looked improved in their opener against the Sounders, but it's not like they're some powerhouse either, right? So weird things are happening in these games. It's very hot. Different bounces are taking different things. There's a lot of randomness going on. So I wouldn't rule anything out. Having said that, if you ask me right now, pick the games, I would probably pick the Whitecaps to lose both of them.
Yeah, it's tough without a striker. And you're seeing it, you mentioned Aliana after the game, Russell Pivier and Maxime Crepeau, along with Coach Mark DeSantos, did media availability after, and they were a little unnerved by the result. You could tell.
How could you not be, right? You blow a lead in that fashion that was gifted to you, right? 2 goals completely gifted to you. San Jose should have never, ever given up that own goal like that. I mean, how was Jackson Ewell the last man back in that situation? He was 30 yards from goal on a corner kick, and he's the last man back. It was unbelievable.
19 minutes in, and you got everybody forward.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then the 3rd goal was just as egregious. So, I don't know who's going to be creating chances for Vancouver. I don't know who's going to be finishing them, other than the left back, right? Which, full credit to him. He's proven to be a decent goal scorer from that position here. But it's not like Ali Adnan's going to be finding himself in those places all the time. considering where he's starting out. So, you don't have Freddie Montero, you don't have Cavallini, you don't have Ricketts. It's just going to be tough sledding for a team that even at full strength was probably going to have a difficult time.
So you mentioned it a bit already, just about the weird MLS tournament, and it continued again this morning as we saw Cincinnati FC, who got absolutely blown out and looked like a USL team against Columbus, and they go on to beat Atlanta, a shorthanded team who went down to 9 men eventually, 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, that red card certainly helped out. Even after, though, they went up a man. I guess Cincinnati weren't really doing all that much. But I have bigger questions about Atlanta than I do Cincinnati. Cincinnati are going to be bad this year. It's just kind of the way it's going to be. They don't have a great roster. Jurgen Locadia is a very talented player, but just like Cavallini and Montero and Ricketts, he is not in Orlando, from what I've been told. So, they're playing with one or two hands tied behind their back. Atlanta, on the other hand, you go down a man for 60 minutes in the 9 a.m. game, which is the hottest game down there, right? So that's something that needs to be considered. It's always going to be tough. Having said that, it's not like they were looking like gangbusters before they went down a man, and they didn't play very well the other night against the New York Red Bulls when they lost 1-0. So obviously no Joseph Martinez, again, another big name striker, not in Orlando. His due to a torn ACL that he suffered in their opener back in February. But you still have PT Martinez, you still have Ezekiel Barco, you still have a lot of talented players on that team. And I think it's very fair to say that Frank DeBoer, the coach, is not getting, he's not getting enough out of that roster. The sum of the parts is not what we're seeing on the field.
I mean, you could see it as far even back as last year too. They would just, even with Josef Martinez, they were just underperforming a bit, even in their aspects, and almost seemed on some games.
Yeah, they weren't as entertaining last year for sure, right? They got good results. I think they finished third in the regular season standings, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like they were a bad team, but they were not they didn't have the similar excitement and flair that they had under Tata Martino and with Miguel Almiron. But even from that team, they had a ton of turnover this offseason, right? No more Darlington Nagbe, who's been great in Columbus in the limited amount of games he's played there. No more Julian Gressel. We've mentioned Martinez. No more Leandro Gonzalez Perez, who's the leader of their back line. Michael Parkhurst retired. That's 5 starters right there that they don't have. 5 really important players. So it's going to be an adjustment for Atlanta. I'm not sold that DeBoer is the guy to guide them through that, though.
Yeah, we'll see about that. So a couple games we got tonight coming forward, and a big one here for us Canadians is the TFC Montreal game.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Montreal were awful in their opener against New England.
Sam, you're being very kind.
I mean, yeah, it was not an encouraging performance, to say the least, for Thierry Henry and his group. But they have some talent too. They have some good players. Victor Wanyama, Boyan. I know Boyan's had an up and down run here, but he's obviously plenty skilled. I'm a fan of Sam Piet. And they have some other guys on that team that are more than solid. Tight air, plenty of talent as well. So I'm curious to see. I didn't think Thierry got the tactics right in the first game against New England. It was kind of a weird shape that he came out in. And he came out and he blasted the players for their effort after the match. So curious to see how they'll respond, particularly against a rival like TFC, who had some issues of their own in their opener against DC United, going up 2 goals, going up a man, and then blowing it in the final 10 minutes. So I don't know. That was a 9 a.m. game too. So maybe the heat played a role there. They had to sub off both of their center backs due to cramps. So, that never helps. Having said that, I am curious to see what they look like. I thought Pozuelo and Piatti showed some good signs. I actually thought Bradley was very good for most of that game in the opener. And we'll see if Josie Altidore makes his debut in Orlando, although I don't really expect him to. But his replacement, Io Akinola, 20-year-old, scored 2 goals, one very nice goal
Yes.
Which was encouraging to see for anyone who follows the development of the younger players in the league.
And we do up here in Canada for those Canadian national team players, of course, and some of the younger American too that are.
Yeah, well, Akinola, US youth guy. So we'll see. He's still got a decision to make, but we'll see.
Oh well, hoping he caps with us. So I'm joined here by Sam Stejskal, who hopefully joins me again after that. Sam, so what are you making of the whole tournament regrets? I mean, we had a little bit of issues at the beginning with regards to the bubble being bursted, and obviously the two teams had to withdraw, but it looks like things are kind of under control now, and we might actually finish out this MLS's back tournament.
Yeah, it looks pretty promising from that standpoint. I mean, I don't think the bubble was ever burst because I think the league would contend, and I tend to agree with this, that the players who tested positive brought it in with them. But anytime you're like, well, it's good aside from the two entire teams that had to withdraw. It's like, well, yeah, it is, but that's a kind of a big aside, right? The fact that you have Nashville and Dallas who had to pull out of the tournament before they could even play a game, and are still down there, by the way, in Orlando, just kind of stuck in the hotel before they can return back home. It just shows how difficult this is. I think it shows that there were issues with the process, namely, being that they didn't have a quarantine period upon arrival, like the NBA is having, right? And that's something that the players fought against. It was in the initial plan that MLS proposed, and the players didn't want to do it because it would have meant staying down there a lot longer. The league, people on the league side of that equation are making that point pretty clear. The players are saying, well, hey, you didn't have to do the schedule like you did it. Like, it didn't have to be this 16-team knockout round. Everyone could have played 4 or 5 games. We could have done a quarantine period at the beginning and stayed down there from the exact same time frame that we are, which is also valid. It's also valid to point out that medical experts signed out on this from both sides. And then the cases sort of exploded, not just in Orlando and in Florida, but also in Texas, where Dallas were coming from, and Tennessee, Nashville came from. So there were a lot of things that were outside the league's control, but some that were inside of their control that they probably would go back and change if they had another chance to do so. And yeah, I mean, I think it's going well at this point. It seems like everything's settled down, as you mentioned, which is positive. Hopefully everyone stays healthy down there and they can continue on. It's been some fun soccer. I'm not sure it's been good soccer, but it's been fun. And hopefully that continues. And like, it has been going well aside from those two teams being pulled out, but I don't think we should minimize those two teams being pulled out. That's kind of a big deal.
No, that is something pretty important. And two, interesting to note that you mentioned that the teams are still down there. Is it something maybe the MLS plans to have them play their, because I'm hearing that they're going to play the 3 regular season games and make them up against each other. Is their plan to have them play down there?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
I can't really speak to that. I don't know. But I haven't heard anything to that effect. I mean, neither team has trained in a while now. So I think they're just basically they have to wait for 10 to 14 days, somewhere in that range,
Before they
after their last positive test. So that's why they're still down there.
Poor guys.
Yeah, it's a brutal situation for the guys down there on those teams.
Yeah. Well, so Sam, thank you very much for taking the time today to join me. I know you're really busy, obviously, between a game this morning and we got a couple big ones this evening here. So thank you again. Yeah,
well, thank you for having me on. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sam Stejskal from the Athletic Soccer and co-host of Allocation Disorder, like I said. So thank you very much for joining me, Sam.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right. Thanks again, Joshua. I appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.
All right. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
All right, bye.
I swear, I have a disclaimer. I send it out every episode, or now at least, that I am live for my shows. And I don't know. I think I should do it in bigger thing. And also, too, one of my mistakes that I was doing was I was just saying 3 p.m. So I would have people at like 12 in the afternoon. They would be messaging me and they'd be like, Josh, we're ready to go. Let's go. Where's the Zoom meeting? We're doing your show. We're ready to go. I had a couple of people actually miss it. If you remember from like one of my first 3 or 4 episodes, Adam Reed from the Brampton Beast in the ECHL actually missed one of my shows. So I'm getting better at actually sending out disclaimers that it is live. We do have a little bit of a delay. I don't know what we have. Lee, what kind of delay do we have? Like 10, 20 seconds? Okay. So like we can obviously, like fix JD Burke's, swearing on air or whatever. But anything else, we kind of have to roll on the fly. So I'm really excited to be joined by this guest. So 4-time Canadian Olympic snowboarder in the half pipe and host of Dropping In podcast. I'm being joined right now, so our audio is just connecting, by Mercedes Nichol. Mercedes,
Hi.
thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled. I am a bit of a snowboarder, not very good. I can't drop into the half pipe. I can play around in the terrain park a bit, but nothing close of your level. So I'm really thrilled to have you on today.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
And also, I don't know if you heard, disclaimer, this is live.
Got it.
Okay, so just want to make sure I'm asking all my guests during this obviously weird and crazy time. Are you staying safe and healthy and everything?
I am. I'm currently at my home office, so I'm all good.
Yes, I am at my makeshift home office too. I have wood floors, so there's a Superman blanket down, kind of buffer out some of the sound noise.
Yeah. So when I do my podcast, I like have a blanket somewhere near me.
Yeah. I actually have I have one on the window covering the lighting so I can use my ring light a little bit better. And you have to make do with what you have right now.
You totally do. Make it work.
And especially someone who is doing their own podcast. I mean, I wasn't going to start with this, but since we're kind of going on that. Mercedes, can you talk a little bit about your podcast that you're doing, Dropping In? I've caught the last bunch of episodes and I've just absolutely enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. I started Dropping In. I've just finished 10 episodes about people that I know that have really overcome their fears. I wanted the first 10 episodes to be about people that I thought were fearless, and then I looked that up in the dictionary, and no one just doesn't have fears. So it was more about people overcoming their fears, and it kind of came together well. I'm on the Dean Blundell network, so I really get to do whatever I want, whenever I want.
Love it.
Which is pretty awesome. And I'm looking forward to the next 10 episode series, which I haven't said what it is yet, but I'm working on it right now.
Oh, I'm excited to check it out then. So everybody will make sure to send out all those links down in the bottom and all that stuff so you can check it out and check out Mercedes Nichol on our Twitter and all that stuff. So
thank you.
Let's get more into your snowboarding and just kind of like, how you got brought up into it. Obviously, you were born in North Van and then moved to Toronto, which you corrected me on. Thank you. At a young age. And then, so how did skiing get started? And that kind of made me like, wheels were turning. So
Yeah.
how did things get started for you skiing in Toronto?
Okay, so my dad was an avid skier, and we've always had a place in Whistler before I was born. So being born in Vancouver, I spent 3 years there, learning how to ski at Whistler. Was skiing all throughout my time in Toronto, which was 9 years until I was about 12 years old. And then it was the mid-90s. And in the mid-90s is when snowboarding came about. And I had kind of skied everything on Whistler Blackcomb. We would come out here for spring break and for Christmas break. And I was like, all right, let's try something new. And me and my friend tried it. And I honestly never looked back. I was like, it was naturally easy for me. I came from a figure skating background as well. So edging, I understood it. And then I started like at little provincial contests or local contests in Whistler, and that led to going like throughout the province. And then I got invited to junior nationals and then junior worlds. And there I was, not ever dreaming of going to any Olympics, but that was the next big contest after competing at World Championships and World Cups and X Games that I was like, all right, I got to go where everyone is competing, and that's at the Olympics.
So I want to get to the World Cups and the Olympics a little bit more later, but what was it about the half pipe that you were so drawn to?
Okay, so on Blackcomb, when you came up both of the chairs, that was the thing that you saw. It was like right there, and everyone was hiking it back in the day. We're talking like mid-90s. It's not there anymore. It's further down the mountain now. But I was just like, well, I don't know. I think I was just a kid, and I was like, everyone else is doing it. I want to try it. Like all the older boys were doing it. Like that, I like were way taller than me, way older than me, and I was like, that looks cool and like a challenge. And game on.
That, but like I said, I mean, I lived in Whistler for a year, so I'm pretty familiar with the mountain as it was. I guess that was, that was 10 years. That was back in 2009, just over 10 years ago. So familiar with the mountain from that aspect, but geez, I couldn't even drop into that thing.
I feel like I was just like a fearless, like 13, 14-year-old, like if the guys can do it, I can do it kind of thing. And I don't know. It just took off from there.
I know you had a serious injury during your career. And I mean, is that something where this fearlessness and that desire to explore it a little bit more come from, do you think?
You're talking about the concussion I had in 2014. Yeah. So that one gave me the time. It took me about 2 years to recover from that crash. And I have a whole TED talk on that people can listen to, or they can listen to Dropping In episode 1, which is my whole story. And that just gave me the time to realize my accomplishments and what I had done. And it gave me the time, as is happening to people, I would assume right now during this COVID time, you have the time to reflect and think what is important to you. And in that time, in 2014, I was like, all right, like I can't walk, I can't talk. The only important thing here is that I get sport back in my life. And that was my realization. And I'm sure like most people right now with all the time on their hands that haven't gone back to work yet are thinking about like what's important to me and really diving deep into their lives.
It's probably why your podcast resonated so well with me, just because I am one of those people. I mean, I recently just started kind of getting into the media, and actually had to go back to work at a grocery store when all of this started. So
yeah.
I mean, it really did. So I actually want to get into and talk about some of your race history and all that stuff, and not just about your awesome podcast and things. So, you started at an early career, and if I have my notes correctly, you made your debut in 1999 in the World Cup.
Yeah.
In Whistler. Yes. So, and then 3 years later, you were on the podium for bronze in Whistler once again. So like, how was that experience for you? And how?
I feel like that was so long ago that it's kind of all melded together. I remember my first World Cup in Whistler and being like, what the heck am I doing? I don't know that I should be here. This is crazy, but it's my backyard, so it is what it is. And then getting on the podium, what I remember from that, it's actually a funny story. It was my first podium ever, as you said, at a World Cup. And I don't think many people know, but you get drug tested at World Cups, potentially. Like if you make it on the podium, it's not at every World Cup, but it was happening at this World Cup. And I was young and naive and didn't know that the people were coming. They come and find you and have to be with you the whole time. And they're like, we need to go. You need to go get drug tested. And the whole podium was at the base of the half pipe on Blackcomb, which was up the mountain. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to do what I'm told. Like, I'm going to go get drug testing. And I missed my whole podium.
No.
I learned the lesson the hard way.
So what are you supposed to tell them that just wait?
Yes.
I do my podium.
Wait. You tell them to wait.
See, now, and well, how would you know that?
Mm-hmm.
So any aspiring athlete, because I hope that there's some that, kind of watch the show and want to check it out, because I love to have Canadian athletes on it. And so know these things, okay? You need to, there's a lot of stuff that you need to know. That's a really cool story. I didn't, I mean, as much as such a
but I learned my lesson the hard way, and now I share that with the younger generations as well.
Okay, well, you did get to enjoy another podium in Whistler.
I did. I got two bronzes there.
Yes, and 2 bronze in Whistler is what I have in my notes. I mean,
yeah,
you already corrected me on one.
You're probably right. I don't really remember.
So, okay, and then obviously 4-time Canadian Olympic athlete. That's a pretty big feat. One of the also things too that I love is you are an RBC Olympian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very cool opportunity. I don't recommend going to 4 Winter Olympics. It's a lot of work.
That's 16 years. That's plus.
It's 20 because
20, plus the subsequent training. Yeah.
Plus. But yeah, that was a wild ride, and that's just grit and perseverance and wildness. And then the RBC Olympian program I became part of after my 3rd Winter Olympics, which I thought were going to be my final Olympics. And I went into the program being like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life now. Let's see what I can do next. And then sharing my story with employees and children and everyone, they're like, well, what's next? And I was like, I don't know. I'm taking it day by day. And within that, it just flourished and gave me the opportunity to train and make it to my 4th Winter Games and kind of get a little bit of redemption on the trick that took me out for 2 years. And I got to meet like rad athletes that I would never meet, Summer Olympians and Winter Olympians. Because at the Winter Olympics, you're kind of always in different villages, so you don't get to meet all of the Canadian athletes. So yeah, there's some solid friends that I've made from that program.
Who is your? Because I mean, I don't know if you noticed on the wall, like the Whitecaps are telling me, they're like, you have media, you should probably take that stuff down and pretend that you're an unbiased fan. You're an unbiased media member. And I'm like, oh, there's other stuff too. So, what was your coolest person to meet, or like, I guess, most starstruck moment? Because I mean, I'm thinking like during your time in the Winter Olympics and stuff like that, already the wheels are turning, and I could think of some pretty cool people.
I mean, I think it didn't happen at the Olympics because I was already kind of the age that like we've worked all equally as hard to get to where we are.
More colleagues by that time.
Yeah, like friends and teammates. And like, I don't even now, I don't know that maybe like if I saw the Obamas, I would be starstruck. But
I'd be starstruck too.
Yeah, but when it comes to athletes, it's more of like I would hope a mutual respect. A funny story about the Olympics in 2010, my teammate Sarah Conrad was from Nova Scotia, one of 2 athletes from Nova Scotia at those games, Sidney Crosby being the other one. Mm-hmm. And we got in the elevator from the athletes lounge where only athletes are allowed. And we got in the elevator with this other guy, and she's a quiet girl, but she got even more quiet. And I was like, what is going on right now? And then this guy left and the elevator, and she's like, Mercedes. And I was like, what? She's like, you have no idea who that was, do you? And I was like, not a clue. Are you going to fill me in? And she's like, that was Sidney Crosby.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And I was just like, he seems like a normal person to me.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, that most of the time, unless they're doing their functions or anything like that, they're for the most part just normal. They just hang out. Like look at you. You're just joining me, and you're just joining me. I mean, if I didn't tell people that you were, and they didn't know who you were, unless I said this 4 times, yes, you would be.
I just worked really hard.
Well, and that's great, and that's a great message that you want to send. So I want to talk. I mean, we haven't really even talked about your Olympics here. So obviously, the best result was obviously a 6th at your home course in Whistler. There, what did you just make of your overall Olympic experiences?
oh, there's like so many ups and downs. Like you go from the highest high of happy to the lowest low of like full on depression. Honestly, in like a millisecond, it can happen. And I think that every one of those games had that for me. So for my first Olympics in 2006, I was a hopeful to make the finals, and I ended up crashing in my second run, and my Olympics were over. And then 2010, I was the only Canadian to make it into finals for the women's, and I crashed on my second run, and I said sorry to Canada. So I was like, we're only getting a sixth here. I'm sorry. And
You don't owe us any apologies. You don't owe Canadians or anyone any apologies. So
yeah, and then in Sochi, it was just grit, man. Like I crashed in practice, didn't know I was concussed, could barely walk, and pushed through it to compete my first two runs, knowing very well I wasn't going to be able to walk after my second qualifying run. I think that I did that because I was like, this is my third and final Olympics. I'm going for it. And I did a trick. And unfortunately, the half pipe kind of wasn't the best conditions and fell apart on my takeoff. But competing after that crash, I was like, well, are you an Olympian if you don't compete? So would I only be a two-time Olympian? And then I was like, we're just doing this. We're just doing what we can do. Like, it's not the smartest move at all. And then my 2014 games, it was like the happiest, proudest moment I think I've had in my life so far, where I landed the 900 in practice and then landed it twice in qualifiers, and then the judges kind of did not give me the result that I wanted. So I went from like the highest high to like really mad, all the curse words. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's real life, and it's in front of the world, and I wouldn't change any of it.
It sounds like you've had such an awesome experience, and I was going to ask what trick it was that you were trying to learn. The 900. I mean,
yeah, backside 900. So it's 2 full rotations where you go up regular and then you come back down regular.
I'm just speechless. Like that's so actually, because like I said, we're live, so we do get some comments going on right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I guess people are bringing up just the whole Tony. How Tony Hawk will get recognized, and people will think his name's fake.
Oh yeah.
And they're bringing that up just in regards to the whole seeing Sidney Crosby thing, and just being like,
yeah,
that's
not really him.
Yeah, and you don't even think about it, right? Because they're doing normal. You'd expect them to be like, well, that's Sidney Crosby. Where's his hockey stick?
Yeah. Exactly. It's true.
So, kind of running short on time here, Mercedes, but I am absolutely thrilled that you joined me. You kind of mentioned a bit earlier, but what can people look forward to seeing on your podcast here, and where can they find you and all that stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at Mercedes Nicoll, Nicoll, on all platforms. And then my podcast is called Dropping In a Podcast with Mercedes. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram and have a website for that too. So you can catch all the episodes on most of the platforms, or you can find them on Dean Blundell Network.
Well, again, thank you very much for joining me. Welcome back on the show anytime. I don't even think, we barely even scratched this. We didn't even talk hardly any of your actual competition stuff that I have down here. So
I'll come back.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. So have a great day, and enjoy the way, and stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Wow, that was a fantastic conversation with 4-time Canadian Olympic snowboarder Mercedes Nicoll. This has probably been so far my favorite show. I might say that after every one, but that's hopefully because I'm stepping my game up and getting better guests each and every show. Lee, thank you very much, as always, for all you do on the back end of the producer work. Rado has warned me that I cannot go longer than the 1 hour mark and I have to cut things at 4. So I need to get into my whole outro here shortly. So again, I want to thank my guest, David Codrelli from Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation, for joining me. Stamp schedule from the athletic soccer, again, Mercedes Nicoll, 4-time Canadian Olympic athlete. Join me again next week. We're going to have post-game coverage from the last Vancouver Whitecaps game as they go Thursday morning against the Chicago Fire. Lots of sports coming up again, so I've actually been able to get my writing back on, so you can check out the pregame, and then I had the postgame of the Whitecaps San Jose game yesterday. So you can check that all out on sportstalkline.com. Pretty much check it out if you are a lover of sports, because we got you covered on all ends. NBA basketball is coming up again. NHL is coming up again. NASCAR's going. PGA's going. Tiger Woods is back golfing. I don't even have time to mention that. Okay, I'm getting short with my time. So make sure to like the show. Follow me on Twitter at JoshuaGriffith0. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, I don't know. Go to our Patreon. Subscribe to that. Donate to that. And make sure to tune in again for Sports Talk Line and all of our great shows. So for the Sports Talk Line Network, this has been the Unnamed Sports Show, and I have been your host, Joshua Griffith. And as always, remember to love sports, all sports.